Hi everyone, welcome back. 2 weeks done, 2 weeks to go. We're halfway through. So far it's great. You have been really participating, and I like the way you reply to each other and you give yourself ideas and share your thoughts, and that's great because that is one of the main points about the workshops, is to share ideas from people involved in the program from all over the world. So that's great. In Module 2, we set up a context for our unit. So the idea is not only to teach mathematics, but to teach it in context. When we talk about context, we talk about real life. We're starting to talk about real life. Of course, you have chosen some concepts to teach, but we'll come back also to it in Module 4. So we have a context. We could say in a word that we are learning things about real life through the context. And you have also thought about how that could lead to action in the learning engagement 4. And then you also thought how you can perhaps involve another subject with you in that context. So that is Module 2. But the statement of inquiry has to be aligned with the summative assessment task in the unit plan. So now we are going to go to Module 3, which talks about assessment. And what that means is that your summative assessment task would have to be as authentic as possible, but the task is set up in a context. So normally the context being like part of something that we learn about real life, the link is pretty obvious, but we have to make sure that your summative assessment task is aligned with the statement of inquiry. So sometimes we go back, when we read again, we go back to read our statement of inquiry. Sometimes we modify it because we realize that it is not directly linked to the assessment task that we want to do. So basically, this is just to say really fast learning engagement 1, just like so far, what do you think that the students have to know, think, and do at the end of their MYP? So that just is a way to reflect that perhaps whatever. I don't want to lead you actually about that, because there is no wrong answer. It's just a reflection activity. Then learning engagement 2, what you'll see is that there is like a video. It's about war, so if you're sensitive to that, which of course you might, doesn't mind if you don't watch the video. Just think about like if we were doing an activity, a task about war, what kind of questions that you can ask. So there is still something which is in bottle notes, which shows you like what would be perhaps a more traditional assessment task, and then another assessment task which might be more authentic, and then you just have to think about what is more relevant. So the idea is not to take too much time with that also. And then you go back to your unit, which is designing a summative assessment task. Sometimes, often people want to have some ideas about how you can perhaps ask questions, especially, of course, there is the criterion D, and here I just, I just went and took the rubric about the criterion D, and what you can see is that in the last trend, we are really in the context of an authentic real life situation. So of course, criterion D has to be applied to real life context, and you should really be wishing to try to do a task as authentic as you can do for criterion D. For the other criteria, of course, communication goes with anything, but when you investigate patterns, it is also suggested not just to take pattern for a pattern, but try to put it in a context. Might be not as authentic, but we can do some authentic tasks also with criterion B, and also in criterion A. Oops, I'm trying to erase that. I don't know why I put an I here. But in criterion A, what you will see is that we will use a variety of context. Of course, criterion A task, if I talk about the task really fast, in a criterion A task, we have many problems because we have to get simple problems in familiar situations. We have to have more complex problems in familiar situation. We have to have challenging problems in familiar situation, and also challenging problems also in unfamiliar situation. So that being said, that means that normally, let's say I have 8 questions, 2 of each. That could be like perhaps seen as a more traditional exam that we do perhaps many times about mathematics to see if they grabbed they understood the topics and they are able to apply mathematics to all of these problems. So that is something which is familiar, if I may say. But using context means that you have a global context exploration. If I talk about consumption, I might have 2 or 3 questions put in a context. It's not going to be only like mathematics questions and that put in context. So you have to think about trying to put a few of these questions in context to be aligned with the statement of inquiry, to the context that you have chosen. In criterion B, investigating patterns of course, well, I can go through that also. There are many strands. The category 2 workshop is not focused on assessment and evaluation, if I may say. Try to evaluate that. But what we can see is there is like a pattern. There is like a way of answering, of asking questions for the students to be able to get all levels from 1 to 8, because it's important when we do a task that the students are able to reach any of these levels. You cannot do a task where they find a rule but they don't verify it so that they could reach, let's say, only 6. We have to offer the opportunity to get until up to the level 8. And also here, as you can see, we have the idea of stating predictions. So if you do a criterion B task and you don't ask for any predictions within it, then basically is as if you were saying to your students, you will not be able to reach 1, 2. So sometimes I see teachers who has tasks where the students are not able to reach these lower levels or higher levels in criterion B especially. So there are many things. You'll see that there are questions about that. So to have ideas, one of the nice way to see many examples for criterion B is to go see past IB online exam. So to get there, also for criterion D actually, and even for criterion A, so you have many ideas there that you can take, or perhaps at least have a model in order for you to do your own. So criterion B, there are reports after the online exam, and the IB says the students really should know like the steps in order to investigate a pattern, which goes from stating prediction, trying to say how, try to explain like what's happening in the pattern, and then try to find the rule, and then to test or to verify it, and then to justify or prove it. So these are the steps that goes all along. So what you see is that only we get to, well, actually, even if it's in French, I should not do that perhaps, but what I may say, these are screenshots of the IB exam. It's in French, but it doesn't matter. What you'll see is that at some point, if I take this one, let's say, you will recognize, even if it's in French, you have like the level of the situation where you have to investigate a pattern, and then there is the area of the trapezius, and then using that, the students are able to like fill in like the next steps. So that would be predictions. Then they can investigate and say that it's +4, then +6, then +8, and so on. And then these are like the difference between 2. And then it's always like +2, +2, +2, like each increase is 2 more than the first one. So what that means that it fits the quadratic model. So in criterion B, basically, the idea is that the students, we don't tell the student that this is a quadratic function. The student have to realize by themselves that it is a quadratic function, and then try to find the rule. So you can send prediction, you can explain how it evolves, like the area, how it's like +4, it's always 2 more than the preceding step increase. And then you can say the relationship between two variables, which is n and t for here. And then once everything is done, you have to test it and to verify it. Testing it means, like, if I use 4 in my formula, in my rule that I will have found, if I use n as 4, then the t should be 20. This means testing. But if I would go like for a further level, if I would say like for 7, it would be a certain number, and then I would have to verify. So I would have to see if it still works for the numbers I had. So testing is within the values that were given in the problem, and then verifying is to reach like further than the values that were given at first, and then try to prove it. Okay, so this is like basically one thing. So the idea was not like to show you exactly what it was, but if I can show you where it is, you have to go to my IB. Then you have to log in, sign up if you have never signed up, but you will need perhaps your MYP coordinator for that. And then, whoop. I'm just going to log in. So when you get there, you go to the Program Resource Center. Then it's going to be in English as usual. So here, Program Resource Center, and then you can go to the MYP. You know your program that you can access here, all of the resources, or here. Okay, they both go at the same place. There are also resources on the right, perhaps that you've seen for all of the programs. So that, like the what is an IB education document, actually was here. So going back to the middle year program, if you go, let's say, in mathematics, so you choose a subject, and then, well, you can click here on MYP e-assessment, but it's here in the bottom, and then you can see like all these sessions. So the instructions to use past on-screen examinations are here. So this is the document that you might want to access in order to have the access code, actually, because downloading it is not enough. So we will have the access code, which is always the same for the practice exam, ABC123 or ABC1239999. And then you might also note that to get out of the exam, you go in the assistance menu here, and then you click on Invigilator Access, and then to unlock it, it's ABC321. That will allow you to end the exam without like forcing your computer to restart. Okay, so that's something that you want to have. Then if I go to, let's say, November 2019, there are not all of these, but we have like examples of extended mathematics exam and the mathematics exam. So you can just download it. If you have a Mac, then you have to, there are instructions for the Macs somewhere. So you just have to look it. Perhaps, I don't know exactly where it is. I'd have to check it, but there are instructions about it. So once you get that, you open the exam, you enter the access codes, and then you have many ideas, as I've just shown you about criterion B, but also about the other criteria, because it's they have managed to assess these criteria within an exam. Of course, when you do yourself a task, you can go way further than what we can do in a traditional like exam. So you can ask students to do certain thing and to get involved, going back to the service as action. Okay. So this is like to set up like the criterion, and of course the criterion D. If I go back to criterion D, then the idea is, well, C actually is pretty obvious. The only thing that I might say is that when you organize work in a logical structure, that means that it's like starting from a blank page. If you ask many questions and lead the students, then it's hard to assess that. I'll do a second video for the rest actually. So thank you.